Are you struggling with Achilles pain that's holding you back in your run or cycle sessions? If you are, you're not alone. Achilles tendinopathy is one of the most common injuries that derails triathletes training and ultimately stops them from arriving on race day in peak condition. In this video, I'll break down exactly what it is, how you can manage it, and most importantly, how you can prevent it from derailing your training so you can arrive on race day in peak condition. And make sure you stick with me until the end, because I'm going to be giving you a step-by-step blueprint on how you can successfully rehab Achilles tendinopathy and also stop it from coming back. So let's start with the basics. So Achilles tendinopathy is a condition where the Achilles tendon, so that's the large tendon that attaches your calf muscles to your ankle, becomes aggravated, overloaded or inflamed. So the key word here is overloaded. As triathletes, we're at particular risk of developing Achilles tendinopathy. That's because the unique demands of triathlon usually involve very high training loads. And because we're trying to balance a busy work, family and social life, and also trying to improve our endurance in 3 different disciplines, that usually means we end up sacrificing our recovery. So the combination of a very high training load alongside not recovering properly makes us at particular risk of developing Achilles tendinopathy. The symptoms of Achilles tendinopathy typically include pain in the Achilles area, particularly during or after running, especially in the push-off phase, stiffness in the mornings after periods of rest, and you can also get a sensation of tightness around the tendon and the calf complex. You can also get 2 slightly different types of Achilles tendinopathy. One is mid-portion Achilles tendinopathy, so the pain and the symptoms will predominantly be in the middle of the tendon. And you can also get insertional Achilles tendinopathy. So this is where your pain and symptoms are felt lower down, more where the Achilles tendon attaches into the ankle. Later in the video, I'll be discussing how to manage and rehab Achilles tendinopathy properly. And there is a lot of similarities in the rehab process between mid-portion and insertional Achilles tendinopathy. But if you're finding that you've got pain towards the bottom of the ankle, more around the insertional area of your Achilles tendon, what's crucial is that you avoid activities where your ankle goes into dorsiflexion. So this means that you need to avoid walking or running up hills or doing exercises like heel drops. This is because it can put excess load and strain on that area and actually increase your symptoms. To rehab successfully from Achilles tendinopathy, you need to take a multi-step approach, and there's a few key things that you need to put in place. So first of all, I'd recommend reducing your training load and volume. So it doesn't mean going for complete rest and stopping everything, but you need to pull back your running volume particularly, and probably your cycling volume as well, into that pain-free range. Because if you continue to push yourself hard in training and trying to push through the pain, you're likely just going to exacerbate things and make it much worse. So like I said, you don't need to go for complete rest. Some mild discomfort and irritation can be okay. But what I'd recommend is not pushing more than say a 3 to 4 out of 10 of pain. If you're consistently pushing more than that and going into 5 or 6 out of 10, you're at greater risk of making things a lot worse and being sidelined for weeks or months. It's also really important with your training that you monitor your symptoms for 24 hours after. So mild discomfort and irritation is okay during the session as long as this settles quickly. If your pain is more aggravated for more than 24 hours after, again, this is a sign that you're pushing that training load too much and you need to pull things back. So like I mentioned, running is likely going to be harder for you at the moment. So it might be sensible to swap out some of your run sessions and focus more on nailing your swim and bike sessions. I know it can be frustrating, especially if you're gearing up for race day, but it's better to be slightly undertrained than overtrained and injured. And you can also see it as a great way to improve any weaknesses you've got in the swim and bike. Alongside reducing your training load, it's absolutely vital that you're following a proper rehab strategy. And there's 3 tiers of exercises that you'll need to progress through to ensure that you can get back to training without your body breaking down. So first of all, you want to start with isometric exercises. Isometric exercises involve holding a position without any movement. For example, if you were to go into a calf raise, you'd lift up into the top of that position and hold it there. These exercises are great, especially in the early stages, to start loading up the muscles and the tendons without putting too much excessive load or strain through the area. So they're really helpful, like I said, early on if you've got more irritable Achilles pain. So for your isometric exercises, For example, an isometric calf raise, you want to hold at the top for 45 seconds and repeat for 5 times. I'd also recommend around 15 to 30 seconds of rest time between each rep, and you can repeat these sets 3 to 4 times per day. So as the pain begins to subside and your exercise tolerance begins to improve, progressing onto eccentric exercises is going to be a really good option. So eccentric exercises focus on the lengthening part of the contraction. In the case of an eccentric calf raise, what you would do is use both of your feet to move up into the top of that position. And then say if you've got the Achilles pain in your right foot, what you would do is slowly lift the left foot away, support yourself with your hands, and then slowly lower down with your right foot until you come into that neutral position. And then to do the second rep, you then push up with both of your feet and then repeat. And it would be really key here to focus on control as you go from the top back to a neutral position. For eccentric exercises, a good rep and set range to aim for would be 3 sets of 8 repetitions. And I'd also recommend resting for approximately 2 minutes between each set. This should give yourself enough time to rest and recover, and then be able to get the training adaptations that we're looking for from the next set. But just bear in mind, obviously these are just guidelines. You might need to tweak things depending on how you feel during the set or the workout. And again, if you struggle with any of this, hit that link in the description, join our Resilient Triathlete workshop, where we'll be able to give you more specific insights and guidance. And then once you can manage eccentric exercises, it's great then to progress onto heavier loading exercises that work through the whole range of the exercise. So this full progression from isometric to eccentric and then to heavy loading ensures then that we're helping our body to fully prepare for the unique demands of triathlon. So for heavy loading exercises, again, if we're sticking with a calf raise, you'd want to be doing the whole movement just with that right ankle, if that was your symptomatic side. And then you'd want to be loading that up with a heavier weight. So you want to be doing between 3 to 5 sets, and then you really want to lower that rep range down. So you could be sticking in between sort of 5 to 6 rep range. You could go a little bit higher, but I'd recommend slow and heavy loading for that Achilles tendon. The repetitions should take between 3 to 6 seconds. So it's really important you slow down that movement and you're focusing on control. You can also progress onto other types of calf and heel raises. So you could do it maybe on a leg press machine, or a seated calf raise machine are really good as well. But if you don't have too much equipment, standard calf raises can be really great, just using a step at home. But also just linking back to what I mentioned earlier on in the video, if you are struggling with more insertional Achilles tendinopathy, so that'll be pain at the bottom of the tendon, you really want to avoid going too far down with that heel raise. So you don't want to go below the neutral position. And then just to finish off, a crucial late stage rehab progression for Achilles tendinopathy is doing some form of plyometric exercise. So these types of exercises involve loading up that tendon with jumping or hopping movements. These are really great, especially when you start returning to training properly, because it enhances the energy store and release of that tendon. And ultimately, it will actually help you to perform better as a triathlete while minimizing your risk of developing flare-ups and recurring injuries. So some good exercise suggestions here would be to do double-legged pogo jumps or single leg hops. So you could start by doing 3 sets of 60 seconds. And I'd recommend trying to add these in at least 2 to 3 times per week. It's definitely important to continue doing these when you back up to training at full speed. And then when you do start returning to training, it's absolutely vital that you do build your training volume back in a smart and controlled way. So again, you want to be staying in those pain parameters that I discussed earlier. And then I'd also recommend not increasing your training load or volume by more than 10% each week. And then it would also be really good to have a deload week every 4 to 6 weeks. This again will help with recovery and also ensure that you're not loading things up too fast too soon. So it's definitely good to be on the side of caution here, because the last thing you want to do is work hard with your rehab and then return too fast too soon and end up sidelined again. So I really hope you found this video helpful. If you have, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. And then I'd also really recommend checking out this video, because George has made a great breakdown of how you can massively improve your swimming performance while also minimizing your risk of picking up injuries.